welcome to another episode of Gaming at the Round Table with Maverick, Crystal, and myself, Jojo.
Hello.
Aloha.
So, on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about kind of a crossover between multiple platforms, and I'm trying to think of the word for not like artistic styles or things like that, but mediums. There we go. So, it's starting with gaming and then going into TV shows, movies, and then just general stuff. So as a kid, I there's two that stick out to me the most as far as going from a game to a movie that just kind of changed the way everything was, and that was Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
when those two became movies, I remember as a kid, it was the coolest thing in the world. Now, if you watch them now, probably
They're
the
so
cheesiest things
bad.
we've ever seen in our lives, but that's where it started. So again, now, if you look at what's popular now, you have movies with Sonic, which is probably one of the bigger ones now.
hmm
There's also a couple that I have list of that I'm gonna go check out real quick. So I'm gonna go from games to movies first. So first we have Final Fantasy, Advent Children,
Hmm.
Silent Hill, Mortal Kombat again, another big one which they made like 20 of them, Resident Evil.
Now, this is the movies that were made
Yeah,
from games. Yeah.
they went from games to movies. And then you have Doom, Warcraft, Tomb Raider or Lara Croft Tomb Raider,
Yeah.
Hitman, another Final Fantasy, and those are just 10 of them. But there's more that I can think of. And again, I just mentioned Sonic. What other? Which do any stick out to you guys?
You named most of the ones that I'd be able to spit off the top of my head, especially because they were the ones that were most impacting when we were growing up or throughout the last couple decades.
Yeah.
So there are also, well, I don't want to hop around the topics, but you mentioned at least one of those was anime style, right? And so they've got that TV show on Netflix. They have several, but the two biggest ones that stick out to me are Castlevania, which I absolutely love, the Castlevania anime series on Netflix, and the other one is League of Legends based. I can't remember the name of the actual show.
Arcane.
Arcane, right? And those are. I feel like we're in a society now where that's equally as impacting, if not more so, than movies. And while all the ones you list, well, Dungeons and Dragons, there's another movie one.
Um, another show is, but it's hard to say, right? Because The Witcher was a game,
Yeah.
but it was also a book.
But that's why I
Transcend.
said it crosses mediums.
Yeah.
And I've been taking, speaking of like art, gaming and things like that, I've been taking courses on writing and stuff like that and story building. So it's cool to see that they can take. I mean, you just mentioned The Witcher being a book. Look at Harry Potter,
Yeah.
because I mean that
And that
was
went in reverse
huge.
order.
Yeah, it went from book to movie to game.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty big. Let's see
And
what else.
I feel like it's worth mentioning here that a lot of these listed were really well received in multiple, and in some cases all of their platforms. So Harry Potter's probably the best example. Harry Potter was extremely well received as a book. It was extremely well received in the movie theaters.
Yes.
And the game, especially the recent one,
Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah.
right, very well received as a game. And I feel like we're finally in an era where not only is gaming a billion-dollar business, multi-billion-dollar business, it is no longer the de facto statement to say, oh, they're making a game of whatever anime or movie or whatever book and just assume it's garbage.
Unless it's. Never mind.
Yeah. Don't sue us, she said. But it's no longer a given, right? I can distinctly recall 20 years ago hearing, oh, they made a game of whatever, and thinking, yeah, well, it's probably trash. Now that's just not my de facto response. Now it's like, well, I'll take a look at it. We'll see.
A lot of times with shows becoming, or shows or movies becoming things after the games or vice versa, is that if they do a good job of sticking to the story, then you're going to love it. If not, then people have to have an open mind when watching it, because a lot of times, like, I'm trying to think of something.
Witcher.
The Witcher, right? So The Witcher, the first 2 seasons were great. I didn't watch the third season yet. I plan on it because I want to see the last season with Henry Cavill in it. I'm not watching after that. But I know that The Witcher, even if you based it from the movies or the games, it's not a great show. It's basically they just did whatever they wanted to and threw in the title of The Witcher. Um, However, if you go into it open minded, it's a great show. Like, I loved it because I never really played The Witcher. I've only seen Maverick play it, and I've never read the books. So as a standalone show, I really enjoyed it. Um, but I know that they they ruin some of the games and some of the and shows and whatnot. So
Yeah, if you've been on social media, you've heard that they aren't happy about the change of cast, and
mm-hmm.
that Henry Cavill in particular, potentially others, weren't happy with the direction of the show. And so hopefully he gets his Warhammer, dream come true. He's definitely a Warhammer fan,
I
and
think
that
he
would be
was
really
working
cool.
on something with them.
Yeah,
He's got
I
to
think
be.
he got the green light to start it.
Excited for that.
Again, don't quote me on that, but I think he got
Wish I had
pretty
my
far into that.
glasses. Then I'd be like, back in my day, you used to get your face smashed in for saying, oh, I like Warhammer,
D&D.
D&D, Magic,
Mm-hmm.
anime, basically anything that wasn't a sport.
I feel like Stranger Things really changed that.
Yeah, it blew that
Oh
door
yeah.
open.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because games and the Marvel universe was probably a huge factor as well.
Oh
And
yeah. Oh yeah.
and I don't want to take the thunder away from any other franchise, because I'm sure if we think hard enough, we're going to come up with many other good examples. But those two, potentially Harry Potter is like a gateway drug, but really those two in particular, when it comes to gaming, I think changed American society or Western society's mindset about, is this nerdy or is this actually something cool and fun? And
Mm-hmm.
now we're going to accept it as something you actually talk about with strangers or in daily conversation.
Yeah.
I think something that kind of, and I'm going to draw a line in the sand because I think what really opened the door as far as live action is cartoons. Because
That
from what I remember of Sega generation, and I'm going back some. If you looked at shows that were on Channel 33 for us, you had like Rescue Rangers, Baloo, I forgot what that one was called, DuckTales, and a couple other ones. Even movies like Aladdin and things like that. They made those into like platformer games
oh,
that were
Peter
actually
Pan.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you look at how they switched from cartoon to that.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of started the process. But I think even now, when it comes to live action, that's why I said I'm drawing that line in the sand. I think live action against cartoon, it's completely different. Because even when you mentioned The Witcher, if you look at the animated series that they made for The Witcher on Netflix, those are pretty good
Yeah.
Yeah.
in comparison to the live action.
Yeah, I
Avatar.
absolutely hands down loved. Well, yeah, that's a really good example too. And I lost my train of thought. Oh, Castlevania again. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think you could make a live action Castlevania with the same beauty, aesthetic, vibe, pacing of the action, graphics that would do justice to the original game's lore. It's very hard to, like, for example, one of the best movie series in that kind of genre is the one with, what's her name? She's a vampire, and she like gets a boyfriend that's a werewolf, and he's like, oh my goodness.
Van Helsing. Wait,
No,
no.
but that's a good example.
That's a good movie.
No, the main character, she is a vampire, and oh my gosh, this is such a famous series and it's skipping me. I can see the characters, I just
Is
don't
it a
remember.
TV show?
No, it's a movie series.
It was a game.
No,
She's a
so
vampire and she has a boyfriend that's a werewolf.
yeah, let me.
I
level
know you're
set.
not talking about Twilight.
No, absolutely before Twilight. All right, it's adult, not adult, but like I will Google it later while we're talking so I can bring it up. But let's skip that. Let's use Van Helsing. All right. There are really good live actions out there of dark fantasy. And what were we just talking about? Castlevania, right?
Mhm.
Even the best examples that come to mind, regardless of whether I can think of their titles, they don't have that pacing of action that's possible with the video games. It doesn't even come close.
Underworld?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So even some of the more liked dark fantasy movies, whichever one you can think of, even The Matrix, right? That's a different type of fantasy. It's sci-fi, but like they just can't touch the speed and the brutality of a game because humans only move so fast and it only looks so natural before the CGI is like, no, that looks weird, too much CGI. But if it's a cartoon to begin with,
Yeah.
let's go. Like you can make their faces warp as they move and it looks fine because people are used to seeing it.
Are you sure? Because I don't know. Twilight did a really good job.
Oh, please.
I think a good example of what Mav is saying is Dragon Ball Z,
Yeah.
because I think it's translated really well into games, especially like the fighter genre.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that opened the door for a lot of other animes that
Naruto.
had
Mhm.
entertaining games, but some of them had some, I can say, mechanic wise, weren't very fun to play with.
Mhm.
But overall, it was a cool experience.
Yeah. Like Naruto is a good example there where you had game to other media and vice in back and well, it started as an anime and manga where Naruto, the fighting is really fun because it's a game and it's a fighting game and they do it well and it has unique mechanics. It's not just Street Fighter with the anime characters, right? It's a completely different fighting style. Now the story, especially as part of the game, it feels really unnatural and clunky and all that. But you're not playing those types of games unless you like the fighting. And so they do what they need to do. We veered off course again.
It's still in the same thing because, again, it's the mediums crossing each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you can say, because there's some big series right now that came from games. And I think the biggest one currently right now is Fallout.
Yeah. I
And I
haven't
mean, if you
seen it
look
yet.
at the games now compared to before that show came out, it exploded their market. I mean, it was a big franchise to begin with, but because that show was such a hit, it's all over every single platform right now. Exploding.
Speaking of cross-platform stuff, we were in the bookstore recently, and I'm holding up a hardcover graphic novel. It's called Zero War: Fortnite X Marvel. And basically, it's a crossover hardcover comic of the Marvel Universe characters with Fortnite, the game, Epic Games Fortnite, and some of their characters. And so they made a comic that actually includes all these characters. It's a nice crossover event. I feel like Marvel doesn't need the advertising. And I also feel like Epic Games Fortnite doesn't need the advertising, but they're still crossing mediums and giving incentives. So somewhere on here you can't read it, so I'm not going to get too into it visually, but basically this hardcover book came with a coupon as part of the book. I'm not going to show it because it's mine. And it gives Fortnite skins. And the book probably was going to cost, I think it was like $29.99 or something, relatively what it was going to cost in the bookstore that I bought it from, because it's a hardcover, fully colored graphic novel that you're buying from a famous chain. So $30 is pretty standard USD. This is a cross medium, right? It's a video game And Marvel has several video games as well. Marvel touches everything, and they're probably a shining example of this whole conversation, right? So X-Men had cartoon series, it had
Mhm.
video games, it still does have both of those. It had movies that are very, in fact, they're coming out with, what is it, Wolverine and Deadpool.
Deadpool.
Yeah, that's coming out, and people are looking forward to that. I feel like I don't even need to explain that. So here are two huge franchises that are crossing mediums in something that they're not even known for, right? Like Fortnite's not known in the comic world. Obviously, Marvel is. And they don't need to do this, but they're doing it anyway just because they know that the gaming industry is so huge that they're going to sell it. Some kid is going to walk by this who thinks that comics are dumb, like his father or even maybe his grandfather, depending on the generation, was into comics. He doesn't care, right? He's heard of them. All he's going to do is see Fortnite and go, hey, I'll try out a comic.
I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
you you were targeted on that one because
Listen,
you
don't
don't
call me
read.
out, right? This is going on the internet, ma'am.
Well, you don't typically read
Whoops.
comics. You read like deeper books than that, I feel. And he actually found himself in the comic book section looking at stuff, and you found that and immediately got excited. So it brought you to purchasing a comic book that you wouldn't have done before because it was video game related.
Yeah, shameless plug time. The reason I was looking at comic books was to get art references for our indie game that we'll be making.
Yes.
And we hope that you guys stay tuned because we will be talking more about it in the next few episodes now that we're ramping up its development. Shameless plug aside, you're
There's
correct.
there's one more thing, like I would be doing a disservice if I didn't mention it's Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially in gaming, because I think it's been a staple inside of gaming for a very long time,
Yes.
especially in
Mhm.
the PC realm. I'm trying to think of the name of Old Republic.
Yep.
Games like that. I mean, they were massive games, and it added so much, even into the canon,
Yep.
which we're not going to argue about the new stuff, but for the older fans, you know that if you were a Star Wars fan when those movies came out, it transitioned perfectly into games and allowed them to build their world
Yeah.
with the games.
We have to mention the best game, the Pod Racer one on Nintendo 64.
We mentioned it in a prior podcast, but
I'm
yes,
gonna keep. I'm
it's
gonna
just
keep
so good,
mentioning
right?
it. It's really good. Oh, and funny enough, both of those things, both Marvel and um, Star Wars, both have Lego games. So they even have like Legos. Yeah. I mean, they also have like the actual Lego sets, but like.
Oh, Lego.
Mm-hmm.
Lego. That's
a
another
physical
wonderful.
toy.
It was a physical toy, and the game was in your mind, like D&D. But that makes sense these days. They started as a toy company, well, at least to the public, and now they are. It is perfectly normal that you say, "Yeah, I was playing the Lego game, and I watched the Lego movie, and I did it all as an adult."
They also have Minecraft Legos.
Yes.
So video game Legos. So they went both ways, right? They went into the video game world and they also adapted video game stuff onto them, not just shows and random stuff. Oh, Animal Crossing too. Animal Crossing is a Lego set now, which is also a video game that became
See, it just keeps
Lego.
going like every single direction.
Mm-hmm.
You could say it's a marketing thing, but I think as far as the gaming community as a whole, it adds a lot of fun story and it gives people the ability to go again. Keep saying again, but it allows them to go further into their worlds, so they can find something that they really like, and it allows them to build it even more.
Yeah,
I think it's the accessibility because, as let's say you're a sports fan, physical sports. Maybe you used to play in high school or wherever. Maybe you still play on a local team, whatever it is. But if someone isn't able to participate or doesn't have the time or finances to watch sports like in person, it is a much different experience to go to a sports game than it is to watch it on TV. Don't get me wrong, there are millions of Americans that are happy watching sports on TV. I'm not one of them.
No.
So, something I can still connect with people on, regardless of their age bracket, physical capabilities, you know, even preferences, right? Sports generally falls into the category of people that like to watch sports. That's like its own little community. I feel like gaming is so absurdly massive now of an industry that it is hard to say that you like nothing in the gaming industry, uh,
Yeah.
just because it's like every, sorry for the silence there, trying to collect my thoughts. It's hard for me to imagine a person being completely unable to find at least one genre, let alone single type, let alone single game, but genre of game that they couldn't enjoy, uh,
Because
especially
I
with
also
the
think,
controls and everything. Sorry, go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you, because I think it also translates into the fact that people associate games with like a video game system,
Mm,
not realizing like games have been around before systems ever existed.
yeah, go to the
You have
arcade.
Parcheesi, Monopoly,
Oh, even that.
all those are considered games.
Yeah,
That's
And
what started it.
a lot of those have connections to video games, like
yeah.
Monopoly that has Animal Crossing Monopoly, or, so on and so forth. So back to the big loop of video games taking over the world. World domination of video games.
Well, it kind of is. Joe brought up many podcasts ago the net value and predicted growth of the gaming industry, and it's no joke. It's like, it is bigger than some more physical, more famous industries. I actually looked this up 2 days ago, and I wish I had saved my tab. But there was an industry. This isn't the industry, but for sake of argument, it was something like steel manufacturing,
Hmm.
something integral to society that wasn't as integrated into the global economy as gaming currently is. And I forget exactly what it is. I apologize. But when I saw that, I thought, oh, I should bring this up on the podcast. So I promptly forgot to write it down. But it is stunning how much of the global market is gaming. And so,
Entertainment, man. Entertainment goes a long way. And
yeah,
I feel like the pandemic introduced gaming to people who wouldn't have touched it before, because what are you going to do when you stay at home? You're trapped. You could read a book, but like that doesn't feel like enough, especially when you take into account that, oh, hey, I want to interact with my friends
yeah,
and feel like I'm physically interacting with my friends. So I could play games like Animal Crossing or Stardew or Final Fantasy 14, games where I can physically do stuff with my characters to, play with other people. Um, so I really do feel like the pandemic had a big part in pushing people to try video games.
absolutely. And so the example of their effects on gaming and the reverse in the media at large, we see it everywhere. I think that's pretty well established. Crystal actually went to the store to find this because a while back we saw several examples. So I previously held up a comic book with a crossover between game and Marvel. Currently, there's this company called Ghost. I'm not promoting them as a brand. It's just this is the example we physically have. And this is an energy drink company. And so the takeaway here isn't their specific brand, but the way they advertise. We've seen several, we posted some social media ones where it was specific games that were
Yeah.
on these. So since that's already on social media, that's fine. But a general advertising they're doing now is they're saying things like keep your focus. And for those that aren't
Mhm.
watching and are simply listening, I'm also pointing to an icon on this can that's clearly an image of a game controller.
Yeah.
And as if that's one of the things. In fact, it's the only icon. There's not work or paperwork or homework or anything on it. There's just a freaking controller.
It's like
Like,
hyper focus on video games specifically. Everything else, not important.
right. If you need an energy drink, clearly it's because you need to focus on a video game. And that's how they're advertising. Or at least that's the market they perceive they have, which is not a
Mm.
small market, as we mentioned. So gaming has gotten to the point where it's the new coffee, right? It's the new thing that, or the new cigarettes from the 1940s, whatever. Um, Everyone is touched by it in some fashion, and
Mm.
it can. I meant to say energy drinks are the new cigarettes or whatever, but the industry has reached that level to where even these corporations that are relatively selling you poisons um, are advertising to this market because everyone wants a piece of it, and it's just so huge, and they can transcend from everything from physically consumable items to books to movies to art, all of it.
They have supplements too. They have,
Well,
yeah, because I work out pretty consistently, and I was a personal trainer for quite some time. So there's a huge supplement industry, and it's another $1 billion industry. But they now have supplement lines for gaming,
Oh my gosh.
like pre-workouts for gaming.
I'm
I
gonna
would have a
pre-game.
heart
I'm gonna
attack.
Yeah,
pre-game.
like I've seen them. There's a couple brands of them. I won't list off any right now, but I know a couple off the top of my head. I've actually worked directly with one of them, and they have their own product line of that stuff,
The
and it's cool.
more I think about that, the more I think about like how I drank a coffee today and I'm shaking and feeling jittery. If I were to do that before my gaming session, I don't know.
Try it. See what happens.
Then again, maybe I'd actually, not be able to focus on anything I'm doing because I'm so hyper. Just get distracted by everything.
But that's the new
Uh,
gamer chair. Like you have to have a pre-workout gaming
I.
shake,
This is still
and then you
blowing my
can hit
mind.
20. You can drop 20 bombs in games.
Wait, so you're saying that the advertising isn't just here's a video. This hurts my brain. It'd be like selling protein powder for gamers. You gotta
Yeah,
get ripped.
they have an entire
What?
supplement line for gaming.
I wonder if it's because as a video gamer, I find myself not eating or drinking drinking water responsibly because I don't drink like that. But I genuinely wonder if it's like a supplement line that like you don't ever eat or drink, take this so that way you get the nutrients and stuff you
Oh, like
need.
like Gatorade is. You need these electrolytes to function properly.
Right.
Sort of. That.
So I have a fitness watch, right? And it's meant to work out, but I have the gaming version of it. So it takes your heart rate and everything like that. So the default setting when you activate it is esports. So while you're playing your games, you can activate this and it tracks your stats as you're playing. I use it to like work out, but it literally, I don't know if I can show it
This is
on the camera.
boggling my mind.
I don't know if it's clear, but
Oh, the time is clear,
Yeah, I can
but
see
okay. Well,
time.
you can't really see it, but that little red writing right there,
mm-hmm.
it says esports.
This we prepared this conversation, and I am not prepared. This is what insanity. I'm
Mhm.
just thinking, like, could you imagine being the guy at your big business and going, "All right, listen, I've got an idea. You know we target gym rats, right? Yeah. Okay. Let's touch a new market. Oh boy, here he goes. Let's target the people that are well known for not taking care of their bodies and not working out. What are you talking about? The elderly? No, gamers. I feel like that meme of the guy saying something obvious and getting thrown out the building. That's what I think of. This obviously it works. It worked on you. Joe's wearing that watch.
Okay, I'll explain why I got
No,
this
you don't
version.
get to defend yourself.
Yes, I do. Okay, so this watch brand company is very big in athletics and heart monitors and things like that. But their normal line of athletic, think of it like sneakers, where they have like an athletic line, a
Hmm.
casual line, and so on.
Yeah.
So their normal like athletic line for running is considerably more expensive. Like over $150 more expensive than the esports version.
Yikes.
On top of the fact that I happen to get it on sale at GameStop.
Not an advertisement, just to be
Not an
super
advertisement.
clear.
But again,
Why do you
because I'm
say it
not
like a
saying,
weirdo?
it was like, because I got asked like, "Oh, where'd you get your watch?" And then I would sit there and kind of look at them like, "Oh, I have a different version. I have the game version," and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "I got it at this store," and they just kind of looked at me like,
Oh, you're talking like coworkers and stuff?
"Yeah,"
Like,
because they were
oh.
asking me about it. They're like, "Oh, that's a really nice watch." Is it? And I'm like, "Because it's pretty accurate."
Mm.
Because a lot of the bigger issue was finding one that's accurate. And again, this brand is known for being accurate. But I got the watch for considerably less. But
I
that's
had
why, like, and it, I was surprised too, because again, it is a big brand. The fact that they even made a esports line.
So now that you mention it, I feel like there's Athletica. I think that's the term for just athletic wear, even if you're not an athletic person.
Oh, that's me.
And
I wear a lot of athletic wear.
and so I guess that has trickled down to the gaming industry to where
Mm-hmm.
since everyone knows at least one gamer, right? As long as you've got some friends or family, you know a gamer. So what happened to athletics is now happening to gaming where people just want to feel included or have the vibe, and so now they can target those audiences that it didn't really apply to, right? We've all seen someone that is completely unfit wearing straight up performance expensive athletic wear.
That's me.
All of us. So now we're getting to an era where where we are seeing people, not you, obviously, but we're going to see more and more people that are wearing shirts and paraphernalia and all this other stuff that has nothing to do with their lifestyle. They just want to be in with the crowd. And now the gaming crowd is a crowd to fit in with.
Gaming and anime.
Yes, because
Which
I
we are
mean, now
weebs.
you can go to college and get a degree in gaming.
actually that brings up another point when we were comparing to sports, right? So you play video games at home or with your friends. Okay. You could play sports. Maybe not at home. Well, video game version, right? But you play with your friends. Well, you watch football games, right? Where they go to the Super Bowl or the baseball bowl. I don't know what it's called.
World Series.
Right.
World Series.
World Series. There we go. And then, now you have video game competitions. You have
Yes.
ALGs for Apex Legends.
Esports.
Esport. Like you have all these competitions that you could watch from home of people playing video
You can
games
get a
that are very
scholarship to go to
high.
school.
Like that's so crazy. Like if you told me as a kid back when I was only allowed to play video games for 1 hour at a time, that video games were going to be so huge, let alone be something that I work with, right? I wouldn't believe you. There's no way.
I remember in college telling my father, I'm in a tournament for this XYZ video game. And he said, well, okay. Like, why are you telling me? I was like, because if I go on this trip with you, I automatically lose the tournament. And he was like, well, who cares, right? So we go on this trip. I automatically lose the tournament. And after the fact, he's like, we're talking about it again randomly. I said, yeah, it's too bad because I don't know if I would have won, but it would have been nice to have that $50,000. And he's like, excuse me? Why did you say that part?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I think we could do a whole podcast and probably should at some point do a podcast about e-gaming or esports specifically. I know we've touched on it here and there, but there's a lot of different topics I want to talk about with that in the future. Maybe not next podcast, but in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, we can kind of use that as our segue out, because that we touched on a lot of it.
yeah. Well, it's your turn. So,
Yep. Thank you for joining us at Gaming on the Round Table. Again, this is Maverick, Crystal, and Jojo.
Bye.
see ya. I said bye.